Good evening and welcome to the News Hour. After 2 days and 6 rounds of votes, the House of Representatives has still not elected a leader.
Nearly 24 Republicans have blocked Congressman Kevin McCarthy from taking the gavel, and there's no end in sight. Lisa Desjardins begins our coverage of the continued battle between party leaders and the chamber's hardliners.
Not quite chaos, but for Republican leaders and for the House in general, certainly a frenzy of questions without answers.
We'll see what happens.
As Kevin McCarthy continued to insist he would prevail as Speaker of the House, despite being well short of votes.
It doesn't matter, I still have the most votes, so we could go through every name in the conference and be at the end of the day, we'll be able to get there.
Meanwhile, in the chamber, an opening prayer for the times.
Holy God, in these days of uncertainty and change, we turn to you who are the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
And not good for McCarthy, Groundhog Day. With the words of yesterday,
I rise today to nominate the gentleman from California, Kevin McCarthy.
I rise to nominate Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the House.
I rise to nominate Kevin McCarthy.
On repeat today.
I nominate Kevin McCarthy.
And still, no one saw even the shadow of a speaker.
A speaker has not been elected.
The same 20 Republicans kept up their opposition to McCarthy, a group strongly pro-Trump and anti-establishment.
Seeks place nomination for Speaker.
But this time offering up a new candidate, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. Another change, McCarthy lost the support of Victoria Spartz, who voted present, helping the opposition. After that, the House floor was a sea of arbitration, some huddles aiming to persuade and others clear disputes. McCarthy got one big boost from former President Donald Trump, who told Punchbowl News that he backs McCarthy as Speaker and that it's time to make a deal to get down to work. But on the fifth ballot, prominent Trump supporter Lauren Boebert made a pointed suggestion.
The president needs to tell Kevin McCarthy that, sir, you do not have the vote, and it's time to withdraw. With that, I yield. Thank you.
McCarthy insists he will not. But meantime, the House itself is paralyzed. There is no speaker, the signs above that office taken down. There are also no members. None can take the oath of office until a speaker is elected. House Democrats pointed out that committees are frozen, and they are stymied from some basic constituent work.
Good morning, everyone. This is a crisis of the Congress, and it's a crisis in the hands of the Republican dysfunction.
President Biden weighed in while leaving the White House this morning.
How do you think this looks to the rest of the world? I know you know international relations. It's not a good look. It's not a good thing. It's the United States of America, and I hope they get their act together.
Republicans' fate is in their own hands, but none yet seem to know where or when this will end.
They would like to be able to propose amendments and get votes on amendments that cut spending at any time. They also would like to make sure there's no massive spending bills, only spending bills by individual refined topics. And they would like it so that any single member of the Republican conference can challenge the speaker. That is something that many people believe would disrupt the chamber.
Hey everyone, here again about to go into the Capitol for another vote series, another round of votes today. You know, I know how this looks back home. I'm not unmindful to that. You know, sometimes it can look like chaos, but I came here to change how Washington works. I actually ran on that. I ran, first 3 words of my campaign were that Congress was broken and that we needed to fix it. And so, you know, we're working, doing everything I can to make it a constructive process to get the structural reforms needed, the enforcement mechanisms in place to ensure those structural reforms really have meaning and value going forward. And listen, I've been talking to member after member after member into the wee hours of every night. I was talking to one this morning, you know, and actually in this member, we're in a prayer group every morning together, you know, every week, I should say, praying together, praying for this place, for change for this place. And I just asked him, I said, you know, we both agree that this place needs to change. This place needs to change. But I'd ask you to consider at any time in history where that's looked pretty, where it's looked comfortable. We want it to be as constructive as possible, yes. But it's difficult to bring real change to entrenched institutions. And so we're working to do that. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I believe in this republic. I believe we'll get through it. Keep praying for us today. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Gates. Trump. Gallagher.
McCarthy. Gallego. Jeffries. Garamendi. Jeffries. Garbarino. McCarthy. Mike Garcia. McCarthy. Robert Garcia. Jeffries. Garcia of Illinois. Jeffries. Garcia of Texas. Jeffries. Jimenez. McCarthy. Golden of Maine. Jeffries. Goldman of New York. Jeffries. Gomez. Jeffries. Tony Gonzalez. McCarthy. Vicente Gonzalez. Jeffries. Good of Virginia. Donalds. Gooden of Texas. McCarthy. Gosar. Donalds. Gottheimer. Jeffries. Granger. McCarthy. Graves of Louisiana. McCarthy. Graves of Missouri. McCarthy. Green of Tennessee. McCarthy. Green of Texas. Jeffries. Green of Georgia.
Florida, rise.
To nominate a candidate for Speaker of the House.
The gentleman is recognized.
Well, sometimes we have to do jobs that we don't really want to do. And sometimes we have to do jobs that we are called to do. And so, my colleagues, I rise to nominate the most talented, hardest working member of the Republican Conference who just gave a speech with more vision than we have ever heard from the alternative. I'm nominating Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is humble, perhaps today humble to a fault. Maybe the right person for the job of Speaker of the House isn't someone who wants it so bad. Maybe the right person for the job of Speaker of the House isn't someone who has sold shares of themselves for more than a decade to get it. Maybe Jim Jordan is the right person for Speaker of the House because he is not beholden to the lobbyists and special interests who have corrupted this place and corrupted this nation under the leadership of both Republicans and Democrats. Maybe Jim Jordan would be the right person for Speaker of the House because he wouldn't fight us when we try to get a term limits bill on the floor. Maybe Jim Jordan would be the right person because he wouldn't fight us when we try to put a balanced budget on the floor and vote for it. And maybe Jim Jordan is the right person because he would endorse the plan that was built by the Texas delegation to finally secure our border. Mr. Jordan said in his nomination that there are certain bills that we have to pass to fix the problem. The challenge is the alternative has been someone voting for the very bills that have caused these problems. Mr. Jordan says that we cannot accept legislation like the omnibus, and I fully agree. And if Jim Jordan were Speaker of the House, if he were the leader of the Republican team, we wouldn't have that circumstance choking the economy of our country, increasing inflation, and diminishing the prospects of a better life for our fellow Americans. And finally, Mr. Jordan said we must engage in rigorous oversight. Every one of my Republican colleagues knows that the person who can lead that oversight effort, who works on it every day, who has the skill and the talent and the will, is Jim Jordan. I'm nominating him, and I'm voting for him.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
Sure. That wasn't on an existential.
What purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Seek to place a name in a nomination, Speaker.
The gentleman is recognized.
So this is what the chamber looks like when we're actually debating and the bodies are in the chairs. How many times have we been down here giving speeches and there's not a soul in the chamber? Yet this is what it takes to get 435 people in the chamber and have an actual debate. The American people are watching, and that's a good thing. What we're doing is exercising our rights to vote and have a debate and have a discussion about the future of this country through the decision of choosing a speaker. This is not personal. It's not. This is about the future of the country. This is about the direction of the country. American people who are looking at this body and wondering why we can pass $1.7 trillion bills that are unpaid for. They can just slide in $45 billion for Ukraine but not pay for it. $40 billion for emergency spending and not pay for it. 10% increase in defense spending, 6% increase in non-defense spending and not pay for it. And not do a thing except put language in a bill that prohibits our ability to use the money to secure the border. That bill gets rammed through, and we know exactly how it gets rammed through, because the defense world and the non-defense world come together and say, you know what? We're going to cut a deal, and we'll all go to the mics, and we'll all go give speeches, and the American people are the big losers. That's what happens. We know that's what happens. The Rules Committee sits up there and passes a bill, sends it to the floor, and we have no debate on the floor of this body. We haven't been able to offer an amendment on the floor of this body since May of 2016. The former leader and I have discussed this right here. That's true. But the fact is, this place has to change. It has to change. And the change comes by either adopting rules and procedures that will make us actually do our job, or it comes from leadership. And people ask me, what do you want? I want the tools, or I want the leadership to stop the swamp from running over the average American every single day. We can't keep doing this. I'm going to sit here until we figure out how to stop spending money we don't have. I don't want any more empty promises. I don't want any more, oh, don't worry, trust us, we'll do it. I want to know that we're going to be able to exercise our rights as a member of this body to stand up for the American people and actually fix this country. And it's not going to happen when we use our men and women in uniform in defense and wrap ourselves around that and then spend more money that we don't have, weakening that defense, weakening our country in the process. But that's what we just did. Ladies and gentlemen, I am asking for us to come together and figure out how to solve these problems. And to do that, I'm going to do what I did my very first act as a member of Congress, or as a congressman-elect, and nominate Jim Jordan for Speaker. Now, Jim has said he doesn't want that nomination, and Jim has been down here nominating Kevin, and I respect that. And again, I have no personal animus towards Kevin. And I've worked for the last 2 months to try to figure out how to get the rules to make this place better, and we've made progress. But we do not have the tools or the leadership yet to stop the swamp from rolling over the American people. Jim has been doing it. He has a track record of doing it. And for those reasons, I am nominating Jim Jordan from Ohio for Speaker of the House of Representatives.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Colorado rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Hearn as Speaker of the House.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have been accused of not having a plan. Well, we've presented many plans and are even presenting 2 plans simultaneously right now for Speaker of the People's House. I sat in my chair anticipating to vote for Byron Donalds, whom I respect, whom I see as a leader. And there was a gut check that said, we need someone that is going to convince my colleagues on this side of the aisle that it's time to get going. It's time to build momentum. Many of you have said it. You see that Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes. You are understanding that he is not going to get there. We had the votes for him. I cannot produce those anymore. The colleagues that I brought with me to offer those 218 votes on the first ballot aren't there anymore. It is not happening. And as it's been said, we need to get to a point where we start evaluating what life after Kevin McCarthy looks like. America doesn't want more talk, and I'm going to keep my speech a little short. They want action. I'll take that. I want to get to work too. America is tired of rhetoric and they want results. This isn't chaos. This is a constitutional republic at work. I'm a mom of 4 boys. I know what chaos and dysfunction looks like. This is actually a really beautiful thing to be here with all of my colleagues debating. Just as the gentleman from Montana said, we have not experienced this in the 2 years that we have served here in Washington, D.C. This is the most debate that has taken place, and I love it. I love the conversations that are going on the floor, in the cloakroom, in the halls. There's nothing extreme, there's nothing unreasonable. We're trying to get this right. As my conservative colleagues and I have stated time and time again, Congress is broken and fundamentally needs change. I'm here to get this right. We need a leader that is not of the broken system, someone who is not beholden to the lobbyists, but to the people who sent us here, someone who can unite our party, and most importantly, someone who can deliver on the promises that we have all made to the American people. I believe that there are many people on the floor today that can do just that. I've voted for my friend Jim Jordan. I've voted for my friend Byron Donalds. I'm voting for Kevin Hern, the gentleman from Oklahoma. Mr. Hern went from rags to riches, and like myself and many other members, is a small business owner. He has lived the American dream. He's a father, a family man. And as Kevin likes to say, he's a conservative, but he's not mad about it. We can have a happy warrior leading us. I understand that threats have been made about committee assignments, that you won't receive committee assignments if you do not vote for Kevin McCarthy. That is true. It happened in conference, and that is exactly what we were told. But we don't govern in fear. We govern for the people on principle. Don't be afraid to do the right thing. I believe that Kevin Hern is a unifier. He just received the chairman of the Republican Study Committee by unanimous consent. This is the largest caucus in our conference. Look how many people have already put their trust in Kevin Hern to lead them. I get asked by my constituents, where does this go? Who can unify the party? Who can deliver results? Representative Kevin Hern can do just that, and I am proud to enter his name into the nomination, and I hope that some of you join me. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
I rise to nominate Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the House.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think we have three objectives this Congress. Three fundamental things we have to get done in the 118th Congress. First, pass the bills that fix the problems. In 2 years' time, we have a border that is no longer a border. We have a military that can't meet its recruitment goals. We have bad energy policy, bad education policy, record spending, record inflation, record debt, and a government that has been weaponized against we the people, against the very people we represent. So we need to pass legislation to address all that. And I hope my Democrat colleagues will join me. I really do. But I have my doubts. And if they don't, and if Chuck Schumer says, no, we're not going to take up that legislation that we pass, and if Joe Biden won't sign it, so be it. They'll have to answer to the people in 2024. Second, we can never, ever let a bill like the one that passed 12 days ago, $1.7 trillion spent, we can never, ever let that kind of legislation pass again. We have to pass a budget that makes sense, that's good common sense, then do the 12 appropriation bills that recognize it's the people's money, not ours, and send it to the Senate, and then stand firm on that legislation. And again, if they won't take it up, and Joe Biden won't sign it, we can stand firm on a CR or something. We can have that fight, but we are not going to have what took place a week and a half ago ever happen again. And then finally, third, and this is important, we got to do the oversight, do the investigations. We have to do the oversight and the investigations that need to be done. This idea that bureaucrats who never put their name on a ballot but think they run the country, who have assaulted our constituents' First Amendment liberties, they need to be held accountable. That has to happen. We need to do it. We need to do it in a way that's consistent with the Constitution, but we need to do it vigorously and aggressively. That is part of our duty as members of this body. To my friends here on this side of the aisle, I would just say this. The differences we may have, the differences between Joyce and Jordan or Biggs and Bacon, they pale in comparison to the differences between us and the left, which now unfortunately controls the other party. So we had better come together and fight for these key things, these three things. That's what the people want us to do. And I think Kevin McCarthy is the right guy to lead us. I really do, or I wouldn't be standing up here giving this speech. I came in with Kevin. We came in the same time 16 years ago. We haven't always agreed on everything, but I like his fight, I like his tenacity, and I like it. I remember Kevin told me, I actually wrote about this in a book. I remember Kevin told me, he said, when the toughest times in life are when you get knocked down, the question is, can you come back? And I've always seen him be able to do that. We need to rally around him, come together, and deal with these three things, because this is what the people sent us here to do. My favorite scripture verse is 2 Timothy 4:7. Paul's the old guy giving advice to the young guy, and he says, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. I like the verse because it's a verse of action. Fight, finish, keep. Not wimpy words that I think fit America. That's what the American people want us to do. They want us to fight for the things they care about and they elected us to do. And we should all remember, only about 12,000 people have ever had the opportunity to do what we're doing today, sit in this body, serve in this Congress. It is a privilege. It is an opportunity. We owe it to them, the American people, the good people of this great country, to step forward, to come together, get a speaker elected so we can address these three things. I hope you'll vote for Kevin McCarthy, and that's why I'm proud to nominate him for Speaker of the House.
ongoing stalemate at the Capitol, as 20 members of Kevin McCarthy's own party say they will not give him the gavel.
Let's take a live look in D.C., where the House will be adjourned for another 2 hours.
We have team coverage. Lisa Rosner is on the Hill. She caught up with Santos just moments ago. We'll start with CBS 2's Jessica Moore as the chaos in Congress continues. Jess.
Dick and Dana, frustration is growing in Washington tonight as Republicans who now control the House cannot seem to elect a speaker. And until that happens, this new Congress is literally paralyzed. Another day, another round of losses for California Republican Kevin McCarthy, who was defeated in the 4th and 5th rounds of voting for the next Speaker of the House. Tonight, growing calls from McCarthy's own supporters for him to step aside.
No one is really entitled to any vote, and Kevin worked very hard, but he still didn't make case with some of the people.
It doesn't make sense, and we need to move forward.
A defiant McCarthy showed no signs of stepping down as the House entered a 6th vote, and McCarthy supporters touted his fitness to serve as Speaker.
Many of the people who are members here today are, quite frankly, here because of his leadership, and he has gone out of his way to make sure that every single one of us has had a voice at the table.
A group of 20 Republican rebels who are seeking prestigious chairmanships and other perks refused to vote for McCarthy and have nominated Byron Donalds of Florida as an alternative. Even urging from former President Trump, whose endorsement secured many of their congressional wins, has proven futile.
Even having my favorite president call us and tell us we need to knock this off, I think it actually needs to be reversed. The president needs to tell Kevin McCarthy that, sir, you do not have the votes and it's time to withdraw.
Political strategist Joel Payne says the current Republican gridlock is telling.
These folks did not come to Washington with any intent to govern, and they don't want to be a part of a governing scenario. And the fact that they are creating chaos is actually the point. Like the chaos is the point.
New York Democrat Hakeem Jeffries has led all 3 votes with 212, 11 more than McCarthy. And while it would be unprecedented, a Speaker Jeffries isn't out of the question.
I think that the only 2 possibilities are either Kevin, who's really the compromise candidate amongst Republicans anyway, or somebody that the Democrats support with a small group of Republicans.
So as a last resort, lawmakers could adopt a resolution that would elect a speaker by what's called a plurality vote. In that case, McCarthy would only need 213 votes. But with Jeffries already securing 212, a plurality vote could be risky and even cost McCarthy the speakership if even 1 or 2 never McCarthy Republicans voted for Jeffries. Dick and Dana.
All right, thanks very much, Dick.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to place in nomination the name of Byron Donalds of Florida.
The gentleman is recognized.
I want to begin by saying how much I have anticipated the gentleman from Michigan's arrival in this House. Not in the Senate, not in the old staid, unchanging Senate, but in the House where we make change. Yesterday, we could have elected the first black Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. Bring it. Bring it. Hear me clearly. Hear me clearly. Had the cascade of votes begun, it would have extended to every member of this body. It could begin today. Last night, I sat within feet of Mr. Donalds as the tweet of another member-elect appeared on the screen. That member-elect wrote and sent out to America that Byron Donalds is a prop. I've spent a good bit of time with Mr. Donalds, especially lately. He ain't no prop. And if he were a prop, he wouldn't be sitting where he's sitting. This is the tired, old, grotesquely racist rhetoric that we've seen far too long. Today, a member-elect quote tweeted a Fox News story that incorrectly reported that I said that if I don't prevail on the question before the House, I will resign. That member-elect quote tweeted that incorrect story for his own political purposes after the story had been corrected and the actual statement contradicting that report had been provided. This is the old trafficking in lies from Washington that the American people know far too well. And by the way, I'm not leaving. Kevin McCarthy released to the public on New Year's Eve a document entitled Restoring the People's House and Ending Business as Usual. To his great credit, Mr. McCarthy made a statement of huge significance to the country. The nominal leader of a major party acknowledged publicly that this institution is broken, and he committed to make change to fix it. So let me help my colleagues in the minority understand. We are doing the people's business. That's what these 3 days have been about. 3 days. We are committed to make change to this institution that has lost its way. It is epitomized in the $1.7 trillion omnibus rammed through this institution just 2 weeks ago. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I came to fix this broken system. America has seen that problem for a very long time, too. The commitment to change it is new. The genesis of the prospect of changing it emerges from this moment and those since June that led at long last to the New Year's Eve statement of Mr. McCarthy and to these 3 days on the floor. America needs men and women of courage to do something new in Congress so that Congress can serve the American people. The Lord said, "Behold, I do a new thing." We need more Byron Donaldsons. I know Byron. He's not a prop. He's a man of personal conviction. He arrived at his convictions through authentic and genuine life experience. People ask me, what is the end game? How does this end? The answer to this question is that this is a dynamic process. All of the decisions on this floor result from the coming together of minds, one way or another. This is the people's business. We will resolve the people's business. And when we do, we will go to the mat for the American people. Because we will be led by people of conviction, like the gentleman from Florida, Byron Donalds. I yield back.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
For more on this, I yield 5 minutes to my good friend from the great state of Texas, Chip Roy.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank the Speaker. I thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania. And I can't help but be amused that the gentleman from Massachusetts says that we refuse to come to the table. As if the gentlelady who will soon be the chairwoman of Appropriations, Ms. Granger, my colleague from Texas, doesn't want to sit at the table with colleagues on either side of the aisle to come to consensus about how to spend taxpayer dollars, or better stated, how to borrow money we don't have. As if that's actually true. What table is the gentleman referring to? What table does he want us to come sit down and negotiate? It's not this table. I don't have the power to offer an amendment on the floor of the House of Representatives despite being elected by 750,000 Texans. I don't have the ability or the right to be able to stand up for them and have a debate on the floor of this chamber. Everything the American people is watching right now is a complete sham. It's a fraud. A fraud being perpetrated on the American people right before their eyes, right as we head into Christmas. Sitting here on the 23rd of December, when 6 years ago, those boys crossed the Delaware. We were dealing with Valley Forge, or the boys in 1944 sitting in foxholes in Bastogne over Christmas. And we had 18 Republicans who joined with Democrats in the Senate, get on their fancy planes and go home. And we're sitting here trying to do the work of the people. Not spend money we don't have, not drive up more inflation, not have 7,500 earmarks for $16 billion for pet leftist projects across this country. What you see here on the floor of the House of Representatives should make everybody ashamed. The People's House. Not one amendment has been offered on the floor of this body since May of 2016 in open debate. The gentleman from Massachusetts dares to impugn the character of the Appropriations Chairwoman Kay Granger and those Republicans he says won't sit at the table, when in fact what you see here is a 4,100-page bill cooked up by a handful of people behind closed doors, brought before the Rules Committee with no ability to offer an amendment, no ability to debate, no actual discussion on the People's House floor. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know it. And we're spending money we don't have. Go home and sell your projects. Go home and talk about all the pork you're bringing home. But you're destroying the United States of America. Absolutely destroying this body. The American people did not send us here to do that. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle know that. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle know full well that this body is broken, but do not care. $45 billion to Ukraine. Have we had a full debate on Ukraine? Or did we take $45 billion of funding for Ukraine, package it on a $1.7 trillion bill, invite the president of Ukraine to address this body for theatrics heading out for Christmas in order to jam through a big spending Democrat priority bill that the American people resoundingly rejected in November? For 70 years, this body, when we've had a transfer of power in the Senate, we have not done this in a lame duck. Yet that's what my Democrat colleagues are doing. There are consequences to this. You can't go out and talk about inflation and talk about what the American people are feeling right now when they're trying to fill up their tanks with gas. They're trying to have presents for their families. They're trying to pay their bills. And then come here and dump hundreds of billions of dollars into the economy while the Fed's raising interest rates and people can't afford to buy homes and they can't live, and say you're doing the people's work. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle, night before last, were apoplectic that Mike Lee was daring to challenge the idea that we should have a bill that literally prohibits Border Patrol from securing the border. He wanted to try to fix that, try to extend Title 42. My Democrat colleagues rejected it, and I sat here on the floor, and they were more concerned about catching their flights for Christmas, coming to me and saying, we can't be here over Christmas. Well, why the hell not? The American people deserve us to be here over Christmas, actually fighting for them, instead of trying to catch planes while half this body are going to vote by proxy. Half this body's not even going to be here. And they're lying. They're lying on forms saying that they're voting by proxy for COVID. And it's a lie. And half this body's going to do it. You know it. And it's destroying this country. I'm not going to just sit here and roll over on this. This is going to continue. The American people are going to know precisely what's happening to them by the People's House. I yield.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There's been a lot of talk about history over the last few days. And 1856 was the last time it took longer than the votes we're having right now to find a Speaker of the House. 133 over 2 months. Without question, the issues divide us today are much less severe than they were in 1856. In fact, there's far more that unite us than divide us, regardless of our political party or our ideology. The issues today are over a few rules and personalities, while the issues at that time were about slavery and whether the value of a man who looks like me was 60% or 100% of a human being. It was a long, drawn-out, painful process, but it needed to happen. And in the end, Nathaniel Banks won by the slimmest of margins. But you know, margins don't matter when your policies are on the right side of history. On that day, long ago, the good guys won. On that day, long ago, the abolitionists won. On that day, the people who believe in freedom and self-determination won. The leading Republican nominee won then, and the leading Republican nominee will win again today. Since then, our nation has made a lot of progress. That includes families like mine. My family's gone from slave to the floor of the United States House of Representatives, being the first member of his freshman class to speak in a series of 5 generations. My family has gone from slave to right here since 1856. My father and mother born in the 1940s and 1950s in the Jim Crow South, and my dad lived directly across the street from a school he couldn't go to because he was black. He started a business with 1 truck, 1 trailer, no excuses, with the help of his wife, and now his son stands here on the precipice of taking back the majority for the American people and taking this nation in the right direction. I'm a freshman, I've only been here for a couple days, but I've heard a lot of DC politicians tell me about how broken DC is. I don't need DC politicians to tell me how broken DC is. The American people have already told us how broken DC is by giving Republicans the majority so we can fix this mess. We will counter the socialist movement of envy and confiscation with a conservative movement of access and opportunity. We will stand on the right side of history again. We will end the growth of government, and we will stop 87,000 new IRS agents from picking through your pocketbooks. We will secure our energy independence. We will ban the sale of petroleum from our strategic reserves to China. We'll establish a bipartisan select committee specifically to keep our eye on the ball in China. We'll address the crisis at the border that's killing Americans by the day and improve both our safety and our nation and our dignity for those who come here in search of a better life. But not yet. We're still stuck at the starting block. The American people have told us by putting a Republican majority here that they want Republicans to lead and they want a government that works and doesn't embarrass them. And we are failing on both missions. That must change today. It will change. Benjamin Franklin said, we must hang together or we must assuredly hang separate. We're stuck in a malaise, at an impasse. And we will stay here. We will not be able to fight the real conservative fights until we find a way to come together and fight that mission together. Yesterday, we experienced very briefly our first win. It's a small victory. It's a small victory. It was a small victory, but didn't it feel good? We've been working hard for that victory, and there's much more to come. As a cadet at West Point, I learned the phrase, and it's always been my motto throughout life, mission first, people always. And right now, the people are left out. Right now, they don't have a Congress to speak for them at the highest level of government. Right now, every individual in this room can concede that the rounds that we've taken is not what we told our constituents to do. We told them that we would fight the opioid crisis. For perspective, there's a hallowed monument that my father took me to. My father's a Vietnam veteran. This monument is a total length of 500 feet, nearly 2 football fields. It's 10 feet high, and the letters are only a ½ inch. 58,000 names. 58,000 names for a war that lasted years. According to the CDC, in 2021, we lost almost twice as many people as we lost in Vietnam to overdoses. We've lost 600 Americans to overdoses since Tuesday, y'all. We're talking about the debt rising. You can't count how many dollars we spent of our great-grandchildren's money since Tuesday. The work we promised the American people we would do, we're welching on that promise. But I have hope. I have hope that we'll be able to come together unified and put the right person in leadership. From many one, e pluribus unum. I'm standing here today because I'm the 7th to stand up in support of Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. He's earned my trust. The first time we met was in his office under the watchful gaze of a Frederick Douglass painting. And he told me in that office, on the eve of the 2019 State of the Union address, that there's nothing that could be said or done during that address that embarrassed him more than the fact that when the Democrat side stood up, they would look more like the United States of America than we did. And he set out not to compromise our values, not to compromise our ideology, but to work harder to make sure that more people with diverse perspectives and different lived experiences could be here. In the very next election, he won 14 seats up from 199. And all the seats he won were with minorities, women, and veterans. The very next cycle, this next cycle, he won, and me and my good buddy and classmate Wes Hunt helped double the number of black Republicans in the Republican Congress. Look, y'all, we have a long way to go, but we've come so far. We've come so far, and we can't quit. We can't quit. You don't fire a guy who's winning. And when you look at the governor's mansions and the legislatures we've lost across the country just this past cycle, and when you look at the gains that Kevin McCarthy has made uphill, getting the gavel as a minority leader, and half the time, the mainstream media likes to laud the leadership of Nancy Pelosi. Kevin McCarthy won the gavel back as minority leader, and half the time uphill. We want to talk about people who can win. I'm a Lions fan, and yeah, that's right. Look, I'm well acquainted with snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Y'all, we need to learn how to win. We need to learn how to take a victory. And by Kevin McCarthy's leadership, he's given us victories on rules. He's given us victories on keeping costs down. He's given us victories with winning a majority back. I'm so proud to be a part of the majority-making class, and he's earned my trust. And hopefully he'll earn your trust, and he's got 90% of us in the conference. When is the last time anyone's had 90% approval ratings? Kevin McCarthy, you're going to see up there, has over 90% approval ratings. If you really want to start making history, let's do it the right way. We need a conservative fighter to help this country get back on the right track. But the first thing we need to do is elect Leader McCarthy as Speaker of the House. I'm ready to make history, and I know you are. I'm excited to work with each and every single one of you because we have a job to do. So at the direction of the Republican Conference, I